Hey everybody, I'm Jen, and nothing says Louisiana like gumbo. So I'm going to make some gumbo today. Gumbo is pretty easy. It's a stew, really, that you kind of just throw things in and you let it cook for a while on the stove. I did do a little research on gumbo that I found out gumbo really means okra. So I know there are a lot of people who are not big fans of okra out there, but you really need okra in your gumbo. It helps thicken it up and makes it really delicious. Basis is the Trinity, which is onion, celery, and green pepper. So I'm going to start prepping those up. This is going to be an oil-free gumbo too, so it is a guilt-free gumbo. Usually gumbo has a roux in it, which often is equal parts flour and fat, but we are going to go fat-free today, so you can enjoy your gumbo without the guilt. I'm going to start with chopping up the onion. I'm going to do a small dice. And our celery. So this recipe does call for half a green pepper. That's the Trinity: onion, celery, and green pepper. So I'm going to heat my stock pot over medium heat. We're going to toss these in and start sauteing them dry. Now, if the vegetables begin to stick, I'm going to add some juice from the canned tomatoes that we're going to add to our gumbo after a while. And you can also use veg stock. While I am waiting for my stock pot to heat up, I am going to go ahead and get the garlic ready. That does go in next. So this recipe calls for 1.5 cloves of garlic. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the 2 cloves of garlic. The best way I find to get the paper off of your garlic is to take the flat side of your knife and press it down on the garlic. And what that does is loosen the skins, which you can peel right off. Super easy. And then go ahead and dice it up. My stock pot is nice and warm, so I'm going to go ahead and add in the Trinity. I'm also going to add a little bit of salt. That'll help the vegetables sweat and make their own moisture to saute in. Okay, they're already starting to brown. So I'm going to turn the temperature down to a simmer. You can see already starting to brown. I don't really want to fry these. I want them to simmer and soften and sweeten. So we're going to go ahead, and this is going to take a few minutes, so I'll be back. As you can see, the vegetables have softened. They're starting to stick to the bottom, but I'm going to go ahead and put some juice in here to help it keep it from sticking. Just a little bit ooh, that adds a wonderful smell. Now the vegetables are nice and soft. I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic. Just a few minutes until it's very fragrant. Earlier I made roux flour, and now it's time to add it to the gumbo. So I have a video on how to make roux flour on my YouTube page. You may want to check that out, but the basic instructions super easy. You take a heavy bottom pan. I put in a couple cups of flour in there, and then I put it in a 375 to 400 degree oven, and I cook it. It takes about an hour and a half. I stir it every 15 minutes until it gets close to the end, and then I stir it every 5 minutes. And once it's the color of a light brown paper bag, I take it out of the oven and I finish it on the stove on a medium heat, just stirring it and watching it until it is the color of this color. This way we can get the flavor out of the flour without using the oil. So it's time to add the roux flour, which is part of the thickening in a gumbo, into our vegetables. I'm going to stir it around a little bit, let it toast a little bit in there. Now I'm going to add water, and you'll see you want to add your water slowly and mix it in so the flour does not clump up and make little balls of flour. You see how that's darkened up to a nice roux color. Okay, let's stir the rest of this water in there. If you do end up getting little flour clumps in your gumbo, you can go ahead and whisk it, as well as a can of diced tomatoes. There are seasonings, which I have pre-measured out here. So in here I have basil, thyme, clove, allspice, cayenne. I have some bay leaf. So to help get that flavor, I have this brand of chicken bouillon cubes that I'm going to add. It's called Not Chicken. It is vegan bouillon. It gives it a nice sort of a chickeny flavor. I find that Tony Sanchez is the best for my gumbo. And I have a good a bit of it there, and it will add some spice to your dish. Because the word gumbo comes from the African word for okra. We have cut okra that I'm going to throw in here, and I'm putting it in frozen. We're going to bring this all to a boil and it'll cook down. The gumbo has come to a boil and now it's simmering on the stove. So this will be a while, maybe an hour or so, which is the great thing about gumbo is you can put it on the stove and you can walk away and leave it and do some other things, get some other things done. In the meantime, I'm going to get some of the optional ingredients ready that I want to add to the gumbo. One of the items is jackfruit. So gumbo is traditionally a meat stew, and one of the most popular meats they use in a gumbo is chicken. And this jackfruit is going to look like chicken shreds that are in the gumbo. We are using young jackfruit that was packaged in brine today, canned in brine. And it has very little flavor. It's easy to manipulate, sort of like tofu is. Tofu has very little flavor on its own, and it takes on the flavor of the dish. So what I'm going to do is I want this shredded. And now I'm just going to shred it with my hands into the bowl. And I'm going to add some Cajun spice, the Tony Sanchez. I'm just going to add a little bit because this gumbo is pretty spicy as it is. I'm going to spread it out on my baking sheet. I'm going to bake it in the oven, a 400-degree oven. The jackfruit is in the oven toasting up. My gumbo is simmering on the stove. I have started my water for the rice. The next thing I wanted to do was talk about some of the other optional add-ins that you can add to your gumbo. Tofu is a great one. So I love to press my tofu, extra firm tofu, press the tofu, and then I cube it and I toss it with a little bit of our Cajun seasoning and bake it in the oven until it's semi-firm. You can also do it in the air fryer, which is a really awesome way to do your tofu. Another option, which is a great add-in, does add a little bit of oil, is you can do some vegan sausages. So they do have some great vegan options out there for sausage. And those as well, I slice them and I do them in the air fryer. Do that as a treat. I wouldn't put it in all the time, but it is fun for a festive occasion to have a little vegan sausage because that is often what the Cajuns have added to their gumbo. So it is tradition to serve rice with your gumbo. While my gumbo is simmering, I am going to go ahead and make my rice. So I have here a pot of boiling water, and I don't even know how many cups that is, 4, 5, 6 cups. And I'm adding about a cup of basmati rice. I did put a little salt in the water to help give it some flavor. So I poured that into the boiling water. I'm going to bring this back to a boil and let it boil on a low boil, which means not the volcanic bubbling, but it's going to have a light bubble to it. And then I'm going to let it cook for about 30 minutes and then I'm going to check it. And it usually is done in 30. So I just took the jackfruit out of the oven and it's browned up a little bit. And now I'm going to put it aside and we will add it to the gumbo towards the end of the cooking. It has been about 30 minutes on the rice and it is just about ready. So I'm going to turn off the heat and let it sit for a minute longer while I check on the gumbo. So the gumbo has been cooking for about 50 minutes now. The way I test it is if you squish the okra against the side of the pan, and if the okra pretty much dissolves, then your gumbo is ready. And it is just about there, but I'm going to let it go a little bit longer. I'm going to go ahead and put the jackfruit in and let that absorb some of the flavors now. This is also where you would add, if you did the vegan sausages to your tofu, you could put that in now. So I'm going to let this go for about 15 minutes longer It'll be done. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and drain the rice. I'm going to run it cold water over it to stop the cooking process and to keep it from getting sticky. Well, the gumbo's ready. Let's serve it up. Now, the way we like to do it in Louisiana, you get a scoop of rice, scoop the gumbo out around it. There you go. A nice bowl of Cajun fat-free gumbo. I hope you enjoy.